Okay. Hello, super secret agent trainees. Welcome to WhizGirls Academy. Today we are so grateful to Codie Sanchez for being here. She's the founder of Contrarian Think, and she's going to give us all of her info on her journey as an entrepreneur and all of the highs and lows that she's had. So thank you, Codie, for being here.
Thank you for having me. Excited to meet you.
All right. So tell us about your childhood.
Well, I grew up in an immigrant family. So my father's family came from Spain, actually, and they grew up in a little town called Globe, Arizona, which was a mining town in the north of Arizona, mostly copper mining, and everybody that lived in the town kind of basically had one way or another support the mine or the miners. And so, my father, when he was young, had to live with his grandfather there as his parents went to go work and make more money. And then finally, his parents made enough money to bring him back to Phoenix, Arizona, where I was raised. And probably a little different than you all, if you're located in LA. I grew up a lot in the wilderness. So, we were hunting as young kids. My dad, that was a lot of way that they ate back in the day, which is crazy to think about. But they, made their own wine. They they raised their own animals. They raised a lot of their own food, and so that's how I was brought up, kind of thinking about that same thing. My dad didn't have a chance to go to college, and so he was a carpenter. And he was a ski instructor. He used to work on the avalanche team at one point. He lived all over the country. He worked on some energy plants. And so growing up, I got to watch my father kind of come from nothing to build himself up as a small business owner and entrepreneur. And then he's now since run a couple companies, built some, sold some, but really had to do it all without a model of anybody else that did it. And so I was very closely watching him throughout my life and how he grew.
Wow, that's amazing. Tell us about your passions and hobbies as a child, and did you have a dream job?
Yeah, well, one thing I was thinking about when I was thinking about this is I'll tell you about mine. But first, I want to tell you some of the stuff that I wish that I knew when I was all of your age. And one of the first things that I wish somebody had told me when I was growing up, especially as a young woman trying to figure life out, I wish they would have told me this, and that is that whatever you want out of life, it's going to be harder than you think it's going to be. It's going to take longer than you think it's going to take. And most of the people that you surround yourself with right now aren't going to be the people that you end up spending the rest of your life with. Some of the tough truths I found through growing and becoming successful have been that most people want you to be just slightly less successful than they are. And I wish somebody had told me that earlier, because I kind of thought if you become successful, since I didn't grow up with much, everybody else would applaud you around you. And I just want everybody here to know it's very normal that other people won't get you. They won't understand that you're in groups like this, maybe, instead of out playing. And that if you have that unique drive inside of you to build something or be something different, do it despite the fact that nobody is going to applaud you for doing it. And do it despite the fact that other friends of yours are not going to get it. And they're going to kind of have little taunts and teases and ways to pull you back. And so I just wanted to make sure I told you that, because if somebody had told me that when I was younger, it wouldn't have hurt so much. And it wouldn't have been so hard all the points in my life where I achieved things, or I was trying to achieve things, and other people did a little bit of this. That is just going to happen to you. And maybe the more people that are going like this, actually, the more interesting things you are doing, because we're all kind of like crabs in a barrel as humans. A lot of times when we see somebody escaping, getting to the next level, maybe getting out of a community that you don't want to be in, maybe getting a job when everybody else is going to have fun, the other crabs tend to pull them back. And it's important that we realize that, because then if we know it, when we see it, we ignore it. And so when I was young, I was really into selling just about anything. I took a bunch of my books from my parents, and without asking, I took those books and created a little book stand and started selling their books for whatever somebody would pay me for books on the side of the road. Now, my parents didn't love that, but I figured out really early that, oh, a business is really just you taking something that another person might want and getting them to give you money for that thing. That's business. And business at scale is when you get other people to do the thing and sell for you instead of just yourself. That's it. And so my hobbies were a lot of things that included me spinning up little businesses, little bookstores. I never did a lemonade stand, but in so many words, to try to figure out how could I change my life from what I see around me to a life that I actually want.
That's very interesting. It sounds like you were an entrepreneur from childhood. Like, do you remember how old you are at the time?
Oh gosh, I had my first bookstore probably when I was 10 or so.
Okay.
Maybe, and bookstores quite generous. You know, I'm talking about, it looks like a garage sale in the front yard, but with a couple books sitting on top of it. So yeah, quite young. And I think, you know, the other secret to, if you want to be really successful in business, let's say, the other secret is you just hang around as many people as you humanly can who have success in business. And then all you do is, have you ever watched the videos where a monkey will sort of mimic the behaviors of a human if one's standing across from another? What happens, and when you're around a bunch of successful people, you just start mimicking their behaviors. And you don't actually have to understand the thing. You just get repetition at it. And so I watched as many successful people and business owners as I could. And then I started saying, well, they just do this. I bet if I do that, I have more of a chance of becoming like them.
It sounds like you had the entrepreneurial kind of itch in a sense, but you wanted to surround yourself with the people to make you move forward. And I think that's what our secret agents need to hear, especially today. So thank you for sharing that. I think it's huge. And in terms of dream job, did you have something when you were like 10, 11, 12 that you thought you were going to be when you grew up?
I think if you want to succeed, most people do this wrong. So most people say, I want to be X, or I want to be Y, or I want to achieve this thing. And instead, I bet you, like me, didn't really know what you want to be. There's very few people who go, I want to be a lawyer, and they want to stay a lawyer their entire life, and they follow that whole pursuit, and then they become a lawyer, and they think, this is the thing that I wanted out of life. It is totally normal when you're young to have no idea what you wanted to do. And that was me. That's most people. But I think how you can get around the fact that you might not know right now what you want to do with the rest of your life. I think I wanted to be a veterinarian. I wanted to be an astronaut. I wanted to be in business. I also thought it'd be cool to be a model. Maybe I could be an NBA player. A lot of those things just made no sense for me as a human. But as I saw other people, I thought that I might want those. And instead of thinking about what you want, I really like to think about the opposite. What are you willing to not do or sacrifice in order to get what you want? Because everything you desire in life has a price tag. Just like if you go into the store and you want to buy a shirt, it has a price associated with it. It costs something, right? And if you want money, fame, cool job, there's a price associated, except the price is interesting because it's really three things. It's either time. It'll cost you spending a bunch of your time on it instead of doing other stuff that you think might be more fun. Attention. Your focus and energy will go into that instead of playing with your friends, playing video games, hanging out, doing sports. Or three, money. Your money, your parents' money, other people's money that you pull together. So whatever you want in life will cost you one of three things: time, your energy, your attention, and money. And if you know that, then all you have to think about is, where am I willing to sacrifice doing a few things that I think are fun for the thing that I want? And as long as you keep kind of intentionally or with purpose sacrificing the things that you want to get better, to get smarter, to learn more, then it's kind of like when you go to a buffet, you're just going to have this big table of options laid out. And because you work a little harder than everybody else and you sacrifice a little bit more than everybody else, you have a lot of stuff to choose from.
That is great advice. I'm curious when you heard about the word STEM, and is it something that happened when you were younger, or is it like relatively recent?
You all are so far ahead of me. I had no idea what STEM was when I was younger. I had no idea about technology. I had no idea about engineering, science. Maybe I dissected a frog or two. And math was something that my mathematics teacher told me I was bad at. They said, you're not good at that, Codie. And not only are you not good at it, but you'll never succeed in finance, which is funny now because I run a very big financial company and have for years. And so my teachers told me all the reasons why I wasn't smart. And they told me all the reasons why I would never be able to achieve those things that were for boys in a lot of cases, I thought were for boys. And even my parents, who I love dearly, used to say, oh, well, Colton's so smart at math and science just naturally, but you work really hard, Codie. And I remember it used to bother me. It used to bother me so much that they would say my brother was smart and I just worked hard. And then I didn't realize that actually, if anybody has ever told you that you aren't smart, but you work really hard, it is a huge gift. And since you guys are into science, the data actually shows, so the numbers prove out that over time, somebody who has been told that they work hard, that they figure out problems, that they just keep going, will be more successful than somebody who is told all the time that they are smart. There's a bunch of studies that basically prove this. So at the time, I would never have been able to tell you what STEM was. I used to think I was bad at all of these things, and I had to prove myself wrong on that, despite other people in positions of power telling me one way or the other.
Okay, this is a really good point. So tell us how this shifted the finance, specifically in the math, and like, did you have any mentors along the way?
So I think something happened to me in particular, and I'll frame it like this. If you want to play a game, you go where the game is played, right? If you want to get good at soccer, you go to a field where a bunch of people play soccer and you try to play soccer more. That's how you get better at soccer. You just play the game more. And at some point, I got tired of being poor and I didn't want to be poor anymore. And I go, where are people with money? Where do people with money hang out? What is this word finance that seems to be related to money? And why don't I just go where a bunch of people are playing with money, because I would like some more of it and I need to understand this. And so one of the good things about being a woman, or maybe being a minority or a person of color, you're going to have a bunch of opportunities for conferences, events, dinners, stuff like this that are just for you. And so I actually went to one such event that was for Latinos in finance when I was in college at Arizona State. And I went to this event and I understood nothing about math. And I was a journalism major, so I wanted to write stories about people. And I went there and I just sat next to a bunch of people all throughout this event who knew a lot about money. And I asked them so many questions. What does this mean? What does this mean? Why do you do this? Why do you like this job? And after doing that for a couple hours throughout the day, I made friends with somebody, because people with money choose people who are curious over people who think they know it all 9 times out of 10. And so a trick, if you don't know much, is just to ask a lot of questions, because most people like talking. And so I asked a lot of questions of this lady and I realized, oh man, I can ask pretty good questions because I'm curious. And she and I eventually became friends, and she eventually offered me my first job in finance. But I still would say that at that point, I knew very little about math. I knew even less about money, but I wanted to go where the game was played because I wanted to have more money. I was tired of being poor.
Okay, you brought up a couple of great points. One is, I don't know if our super secret agents know exactly what finance is. So if you can explain that, that would be awesome. And then you started on your journey from ASU and journalism. So we want to hear about that as well.
So finance is just the business of money. So if you think about it like this, we know that if you want something, typically you have to buy it, right? So if you want to eat, if you want to drink anything, if you want to buy if you want new clothes, everything in this world around us today, if you want those things, you have to hand them over your credit card, your parents' credit card, or some cash, right? And that's really the only way we can get anything today. But the business of money is called finance, which basically means they're the people who hold all the money in the US. So they're the banks. They're the people who give money to companies for them to grow more, which is called investment banking. They're the people who allow money to move around our economy. That is finance. And economy is just me, you, and everybody else in the United States buying and selling things. So without finance, we don't have an ability to move the money around in order for us to buy the things we want to buy.
Thank you for clarifying that. I think our secret agents are learning so much from you today. All right, so tell us about your degree in journalism, and I think it was political science too at ASU, and then how you went to get an MBA from Georgetown. Like, tell us about that journey.
So I have a belief that you should try to get into the best university you possibly can if you want to go to college. But if you can't get into the very top tier universities, in my opinion, you should try to go where you can get a university degree without much cash. You don't want to get into a ton of debt in order to get an education, because you're going to spend years and years clawing your way out of that unless it's a great university, or you can get lots of the free money swirling around, like grants, scholarships, etc. And so I wanted to go somewhere where I could go for basically free. And the only place where I could go for free was Arizona State, which was a local university. And because I lived in state, they would let me go there for basically free if I passed a few tests and applied for a few scholarships and grants. So that's where I ended up going. It's not a great school. It's basically known for more partying than actually schooling. And so the problem with these big universities is you get a little lost. You know, there's 60,000 students there. That's a stadium. That's like a really big football stadium worth of students. And so what happens is you become a number inside of a stadium. And the way that university is useful, in my opinion, usually, is if you can use all the resources there. So I went to Arizona State because it was free. And then I tried to grab at anything possible that could make life easier for me. Like, could I be on student government? Could I get internships through the university? I would meet with every guidance counselor that I possibly could at the university, because I knew that there were 60,000 students and I needed to become a name and not a number. And so I did that for 3 years, and I ended up graduating. I spent the last year on a program that allowed me to go to Mexico and write stories about difficult things along the border: human trafficking, drug smuggling. And then I graduated that 4th year. And after that, I just went to work, because I didn't have, I think my first job, I made $37,000 a year or something like that. And I went out and I went to work. And I didn't have a ton of extra money, so I couldn't really afford to go to grad school, or a nice grad school. And I didn't want to put my parents in debt. And so I ended up working at a big corporation that finally would allow me to go to grad school, and they would pay for it, which a bunch of the big companies will actually do. So I could make money while I went to school. And that's why I went to Georgetown. And Georgetown is quite a lot better of a school than Arizona State. And so there I got all these networks and contacts that at Arizona State I would never have had. But I still think you learn more by doing the thing than by learning about doing the thing.
Okay, that's really interesting. So you were an investigative reporter. Was this while you were still at ASU or before Georgetown?
It was while I was still at ASU. So one of the most impactful things you can do is, right now, if you are in a high school, you're already taking advantage of a program that most people never will, right? They'll go to school, they'll do the minimum. And the problem is, if you do what the average person does, you will be as the average person is, which is largely, broke by the time that they retire, unhappy, unfulfilled in their job, and never earning financial freedom or enough money to do whatever you want, whenever you want. And so you don't want to be average, unfortunately. You want to go and do the extra mile, which is actually easier than you think, because most people will not even sign up for a program like this. So you're already ahead of the curve, even if your situation doesn't look like you're ahead of the curve. And so I signed up for a program that was with the Honors College at Arizona State. So the first year I went to Arizona State, I didn't even get into the Honors College. I couldn't get in. I wasn't a great student. I get really easily distracted. I probably have a little ADD, attention deficit disorder. I didn't want to sit still and listen to somebody for a long time. I have a pretty bad memory. I don't know if you have any of those similar things, but I had all of that. So I wasn't a great student. But I found out that it's really hard to get in the honors program your first year for somebody like me. But a bunch of people end up transferring out of the college. And so if you go your second year, you can get into the honors college more easily. And so that's what I did. I reapplied again my second year and I got in. And with the honors college, they have all these extra programs. And one of the programs was if you got all of your courses done. So I got pretty much all the credits that I needed to graduate. If you got them all done, then your senior year, you could pick a program to go and do a thesis on, like a big project of your choosing. And you could get money to do it. And so I applied for a grant from the Howard Buffett Foundation, where they gave me money to go pursue this idea of journalism along the US-Mexico border. And so I did that. And for that most of my senior year, or maybe half of my senior year, I lived along the US-Mexico border writing stories.
That's actually a good point, because I was going to ask you about the award that you got from the Howard Buffett for print journalism. That was during that time.
Yep, that's right. I got that right before I graduated my senior year. And that was from working on a project with a bunch of other students. It wasn't me alone. I never would have known to apply to that grant. It was basically just always asking, what other programs do you have? What else can I participate in? If I want to work harder, are there unique opportunities for students like me that might want to work harder? And you ask that every time you can to whomever you can. And it turns out most people never do. And so you'll get opportunities that most people won't.
And I think this goes back to what you mentioned earlier about your curiosity and like wanting to learn and being eager and really determined, and like the persistence and perseverance and not hearing no, even though you heard finance was not like for you, like the Beatles heard music was not for them, like all the things. Like I think that's like a barrier. Michael Jordan heard basketball wasn't for him either, right? So every time you hear something like that, it just makes you want it more. I can attest to that too. So I think you're a great example of that. And so then the RFK Journalism Award, was that around that time as well?
Yes, that was my senior year, and we won it for work on that we got from the Howard F. Buffett Foundation grant. So, the framework is basically this. You go and ask for free programs for people who want to work hard at something you think is interesting. Then when you get those free programs, you're already around a group of people who want to make their program look successful. And so because of that, they're going to help you apply for things like awards and resources. So it looks like the money they spent on you is valuable. And so they helped us apply for the Robert F. Kennedy Award for Print Journalism, and we ended up winning. And I don't even know if I knew who Robert F. Kennedy was back then, but these things are all around you. It's just that most people won't apply for them.
That's a good point. I think the curiosity really like lends itself to like, wanting to be and learning more, and kind of like you attract these experiences to you. Okay, so the next thing is you were a consultant at Vanguard, and then when did you switch to, I guess, was it during MBA school when you went to Goldman Sachs, like after you graduated?
One of the best ways you can make money, I think, when you don't have any to start, is not being an entrepreneur. Everybody tells you to go be an entrepreneur right away. But the problem is, if you don't have any cushion, you don't have any extra cash, and you fail at being an entrepreneur, what are you going to do? Like, you don't have anything squishy to fall down on. So you just fall down on your face. And so there was no way I was even thinking about startups at that age, because I didn't have any money to do it. And what would I do if I failed? And I had no models of startups actually working for anybody that I saw. And so one of the best things that I did was go and work for somebody else. It's like a free MBA, except even better, they pay you. And so if you're coming right out of school and you can go somewhere where a corporation actually teaches you things and pays you at the same time, you get a two for one. And so that's what I did. I went and worked at a bunch of really big financial institutions. One was called Vanguard. That's where I didn't make much money, $37K, which to me sounded like a lot back then. It's probably like 57,000 or something like that now. And I worked at that company, but they taught us a ton of stuff. They had training programs for people like me. And so I got to make money while I learned. And then I did the same thing when I left that company. I went to Goldman Sachs, and then I went to State Street, and then I went to First Trust, and then I finally ran my own companies. But it is perfectly okay for you to go work for somebody else, make lots of money on their dime, make mistakes on their dime. And then when you eventually have some cushion to fall back on and you know more about the game of business, you can go do it by yourself. But I really like working for a corporation to start because the risk is on them, not on you.
That's a really good point. And I think there's a point where I think you had your time at Goldman Sachs and you were like, okay, now it's time to be a founder. Like, how did you know it was the right time?
People who run businesses are largely unemployable, which is true for a lot of us. I'm not a very good employee because I don't like to follow directions. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it. And because of that, I knew that my time was limited at these big companies. I didn't like how they ran stuff. I didn't think it made a lot of sense. Felt like we had to do a bunch of politics, like teachers telling you to do things that don't make any sense, don't make you smarter, don't make you happy, don't make you learn, but you just have to do it because that's the way we do things here. Sometimes corporations can feel like that. And so I was working at a couple different companies in periods where I felt that way. But the problem was I didn't have a big fancy idea. Like, what do you want to build next? Everybody talks about Steve Jobs or Bill Gates. Well, they were geniuses with the huge idea, and I didn't have that. And so I basically ended up working inside those companies and doing like little side hustles, although there probably wasn't even a word for it back then. And those side hustles, a couple of them failed, a couple of them succeeded. And that's when I started to have like a few of my own businesses. I didn't make a ton of money, but I at least knew that after you make your first dollar somewhere else, you can probably make your second, third, fourth, and fifth dollar. It's the first one that's the scariest.
And at one point, did contrarian thinking come? Like, was it like, okay, now is the time, we're going to do this now? Like, tell us about that journey.
It was definitely not my first company. So most entrepreneurs or founders will have had many failures before they win at anything. And you guys will be the same. And that's perfectly okay. And so contrarian thinking came after I was already quite successful. I had already made millions of dollars, both working for other people and working for myself. I already had been quite high up at big, huge finance companies called private equity firms. I had invested hundreds of millions of dollars. And this is just the first company that was really public, that is a media company. So you get to see me on the internet now. Talking about business and how to run it. But that started just because I had finished my last company. And I thought, man, I don't really like the way they're teaching people about money and finance. And I don't think that we all have to be geniuses building tech platforms in order to win in business. And maybe we could all just learn how to get a little bit of financial freedom so we have that cushion to take the risks that we want to take. And that's where contrarian thinking got started. It's simple, everyday ways to make money, to build businesses, and to get freedom that we should have been taught, but we weren't. And that was my idea.
And was it at the same time that you did unconventional acquisitions, or did that come later?
That came later. That's one of the businesses we have inside of contrarian thinking, which was really just talking about small businesses and how the businesses, like the corner store that we go and spend money at, or the laundromat we go wash our clothes in, how those can be things that we can run as normal humans. We could own those businesses. Maybe we could even buy them and carry on from the next generation. And so that probably started like a year after.
Okay. So tell us the difference between the two.
Well, contrarian thinking is a big, huge media company. So we do 100 million views a month on the internet. We have YouTube and Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and TikTok. And we have a newsletter that 500,000 people are on and read each week. That's contrarian thinking at a really high level. And then underneath contrarian thinking, we have a venture capital fund. We have unconventional acquisitions, which is a community and courses on how to buy small businesses. We have a holding company where we own a bunch of boring businesses. We also have what we call media accelerated companies, which are companies that the contrarian thinking ecosystem fuels. So I'm a little bit, different than some entrepreneurs who sort of have one main focus. We have many businesses because I've been doing this for, I've been building businesses and buying them for almost 15 years.
Wow, that's amazing. All right, so tell us what you learned when you were 11 years old that you've kept with you today.
When I was 11 specifically?
Or around that time.
What have I learned since then? Maybe this. Hard work is not enough, unfortunately. You guys have all seen people work really hard that you know, maybe your parents, friends, that work hard their entire lives and still feel like they never have enough to get by or feel like they're never really going to get ahead. And I always thought if you just work hard, that's sort of what the immigrant mentality tells you, right? If you just work hard, you can succeed in this country. And unfortunately, I think that's not exactly true. The truth is, you have to work really hard, that it is going to take longer than you think. It is going to be harder than you think, but you also have to play the right games. And so I think there are sort of 4 types of games you can play in life, and you have to know what type of game you want to play. So there's this famous old school oracle, like somebody who sees into the future, called the Oracle of Delphi. And she was supposed to have said, the most important thing you can do is know thyself, know yourself. What do you want? And so when I was younger, I remember watching a lot of people have different types of lives and thinking, do I want that? Do I want the Lamborghini? And do I want the fame? Do I want to just be able to hang out on the beach all day and, be with my friends? Do I want this big, huge company? And I sort of realized there's 4 different wants to broadly group them. And one is money. I want a huge bank account, right? The second one is fame. I want to be Kim Kardashian. I want to be Mr. Beast. I want everybody to know my name. The third is legacy. I want a Nobel Prize. I want, the iPhone to be in every person's hands. And the fourth is lifestyle. I just want to do what I want to do with my friends, hobbies and passion as they come around, and maybe have a great family. And what I've often found is you got to kind of pick. It's hard to have all 4, especially right at once. You can't have everything you want all at once. And so it's helpful in the beginning to figure out what's your first one you want. Is it money? Is it fame? Is it legacy? Is it lifestyle? And if you figure out which one you want, then you can figure out what the right game is to play to get there. Like if what you really want out of life is to have a little family, to enjoy life, to have a lot of freedom, you might want to be a teacher, right? And that might be an incredible pursuit for you. If you want to get really, really rich, you might want to start a company or go into finance. If you want to get really, really famous, you might want to go figure out YouTube and social media algorithms. And if you want to leave a legacy, you might want to go into research, or you might want to go and try to figure out how to get the next Nobel Prize. And so before you can go get things, figuring out what kind of bucket you want to go after first is really helpful.
That's a really good advice. I think our secret agents will get a lot out of these nuggets. Okay, we're going to switch to the questions they sent in earlier. And some of them are comments, but I'm still going to read them, and they're questions embedded as well. Okay, so you are a real life superhero and a role model. Thank you. Have you had someone who inspired you in your STEM journey? And how did their encouragement help you become who you are today?
I think one of your superpowers, and the superpower for most superheroes, if you think about it, isn't usually a mentor or somebody that did something nice. It's usually the opposite. It's usually a villain or somebody that gave them a really big chip on their shoulder, right? So the reason that Spider-Man works, right, is because he had something awful happen to his uncle, and he had something else awful happen to him. He got bit by a spider. And these 2 things that seemed really terrible turned him, Peter Parker, is that what his name was, into Spider-Man, this superhero, right? And most superheroes are never super if they don't have some tragedy, some terrible thing that happened to them, or some bully, some villain that did something to them. And so in my life, I almost think back on my bullies as the best mentors, because they helped me accumulate these little chips on my shoulder. Like I remember one guy, I worked at one company, and he sent me a text message that I've kept to this day, or maybe it was an email because that was back in the day. And he was like, you're not helping here. I hope you really won something for yourself, because nothing you're doing here is helping this company. And I remember getting that email and saving it and thinking, I'm going to get so rich and I'm going to build something so big that he's going to have to look at my face every single day and remember he sent this awful email and I'm going to prove him wrong. And so maybe you don't need a mentor. Maybe you don't need somebody to be nice to you. And maybe every time something bad happens to you, that is the bully, the villain that's going to turn you into the superhero. And if you don't have that happen, it might even be harder to succeed than if you do.
Yeah, it sounds like that experience was fuel to the fire to keep you going and going and going. And I think as you go along, and I think as our secret agents have had at school, being bullied or whatever that is, it's just, like you said, a chip on your shoulder, but it makes you grow into your own superhero and you fall into your path and whatever that is of excellence, of being that superhero. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, you think about it this way. If you wanted somebody to be really good at sales, do you think the universe would then make everybody say yes to you all the time with the things that you want? Well, probably not, because if everybody just said yes to you, you wouldn't be very good at sales. In fact, you'd probably be terrible at it because you'd just say, give me that. And the universe would have them give it to you. And thus you would never really become an expert at it. If you want to become something great, you actually have to have the opposite happen to you. So if you wanted to become a great salesperson, the way the universe would help you become a great salesperson is it would give you 10,000 no's. And after so many no's, you'd have such practice at becoming exceptional at getting something from somebody else that no matter what was put in front of you, you would be unstoppable. You'd be one of the most convincing humans out there. And so if you take a little bit of reason and apply it to the things you want in life, all the difficulty you have is the only reason why you will become really great at the thing you want to become great at. And if everything comes easy to you, you're probably more likely to be just okay at it because you've had no reason to become great at it.
Yeah, it goes back to you're building the blocks of becoming who you truly are and living your authentic life like you do. So that's huge. All right, next question from the kids. What superpowers do you find that you have that push you to where you are today?
Well, most of success is just a little bit like repeatedly banging your head against a wall until finally you break through the wall. And so I think one of my superpowers is that I can withstand a lot of pain. I don't mean physical pain. I'm not very good at that. But I mean, this sucks. I don't want to keep doing it. Well, I'm going to do it anyways. This isn't working. Well, I better keep working on it until it works. This is what a famous scientist by the name of Angela Duckworth calls grit. And it is the single biggest determinant or reason why people are successful or not, according to her studies. And so if you can just get really used to doing things you do not want to do continuously, it becomes really hard to be stopped and really hard to be poor. And so if you wanted to build up one muscle, it would probably be, can you keep doing something that you don't want to be doing, despite all evidence to the contrary, if you think that thing could help you get better in some way? And that is one of my superpowers, I consider.
That's a really good point. Okay, next question from the kids. You share secrets in money making and business building. That's super cool. Can you tell us how you did this and how you were able to become knowledgeable in this field?
Yeah. Go steal other people's 10,000 hours. You know, one of the fastest ways to learn is to get around people who have spent their life learning that thing. So most people these days do it wrong. They go, I want to be rich, so I'm going to go get the highest salary job that I can get right away, or I'm going to go try to make as much money working for somebody else right away. And what actually happens is money, you can only make so much money from the money that you have. But learning is infinite, meaning you can make a ton of money if you continue to compound or keep learning. And so the way that I eventually learned all this stuff was I went and did pretty not fun work for like 10 years for a bunch of people in finance, and I stole all their homework. I learned all the lessons from them while working in very long hours until I became so good I could do it all by myself on my own schedule. And Warren Buffett, who's like the OG, you know, one of the richest men in the world, he says that the reasons why he's so rich is because most people just don't want to get rich slowly. And the truth of the matter is, if you want to keep your money, usually getting rich slowly is the only way to do it. And you all can go do that exact same thing. You maybe can't do it in a year or 2 years or 3 years or 5, but inside 10 years, if you focus almost exclusively on learning, taking what you learn, implementing or putting it to work, taking what you did wrong, changing it, and then going back to learning. So learn, change, learn, implement, change, learn, implement, change, learn, implement, change. You can do just about anything.
That's so true. That's a good path in a sense. Okay, so we saw you on Instagram yesterday giving money to street people on the street working. Is that something you normally do? And tell us about that.
Yeah, we call that tipping your blue collar workers. It's an interesting thing. We were in San Diego and we've thought a lot about what's the right way to give back. And one of the best ways to give back, I think, is that you build a company and you employ a bunch of other people and they get a chance to show their talent, and their talent becomes money for them. So it's like you enable people. You don't do handouts, you do hand ups. You pull people along with you. And one of the things I realized is there are a lot of people giving away money on the internet, which is cool. And I actually support that. I think that's awesome. It just makes people more giving to see other people be giving. But I was like, what if we went out and gave money to people who are doing hard work, not just there? Like, I'm at Walmart, so here's money. But instead it was like, we recognize that you are out here working incredibly hard. And because of that, we're going to give you a little something as a token of thanks. And I think if we all did that a little bit more for the people that were laboring and working hard, it just motivates people to do more and be better humans. And so that was the idea behind that. I think that these days we spend a lot of time, applauding those in Silicon Valley and who have built big, huge companies. And that's super cool. But, you can't build a big, huge company if you can't drive on the streets to it every day, and if power lines don't run to it, and if the roof is leaking. And so it probably makes sense to do something nice for the people who keep our economy going every single day. And so that's the thought.
Yeah, you have a big heart and you're always giving back. So I think that's phenomenal. And I know that you're volunteering a lot as well. And can you tell us a little bit about that as well?
Well, I don't know if I have a big heart. I think I really respect competence. I really respect people who are out there trying, because I know how hard it is. And so for people who are out there doing the damn thing, I want to be somebody cheerleading them on, because there were so many moments where nobody was cheerleading me on. I kind of, in a lot of ways, don't trust a lot of people that just all they do is say that they give to others. I just want to enable others. I think you are uniquely skilled at something, and I hope that you share that skill with us in the world, because our world will be a better place if you do, and it'll be a worse place if you don't. And so that's actually kind of selfish. I'm doing the giving because I want more people to do the working. And I think that, it's fun to go on vacation for a period, but after a while, we are happy as humans when we actually are doing the thing we should be doing, and we're creating instead of just consuming. And so we're really big on that. And we're also really big on teaching a man how to fish, not giving him a fish. And so I think about that in finance. Like, what we could do is we could go raise a bunch of money and we could invest people's money. And we would make a lot of money doing that. I did that for years, raised, billions of dollars. And yet all we're doing is then giving a man to fish, because we're the one learning all the secrets about investing. And so I think the biggest charitable work we can do is just teaching more humans how to go do the thing yourself. Because then I can't ever take away your knowledge and education. I can take away your business. I can take away your money. I can take away your family, theoretically. And I've seen all of that happen in Latin American countries that I worked in. But I can never take away the knowledge that is in your head. And if you become so good at business or science or math, it won't matter. If you have to flee this country and you go to another one, you take your brain, even if you can't take the rest of it. And so I always like the idea of building this in as many humans as possible, because nobody can take it from you.
That's so, so true. Okay, we're going to switch back to two more questions and then we'll do our 60 seconds and key takeaways. Looking to the future is exciting. What do you imagine for girls in STEM down the road, and how can we make sure everyone gets a chance to be part of the STEM adventure?
There's no better time to be alive than right now in history. By almost any metric, we live longer. There is decreased poverty. There's more opportunity. Think about how incredible it is that today, for instance, if you want running water, you turn a handle. If you want to go get food, you go down to a corner store. If you want to learn, you go online at your school on a computer there or at your local library, and it streams direct to you. So anybody that's telling you that this is a bad time to be alive is just lying to you. And they're doing that because they're pandering to some idea that you're a victim, you're not capable, and the world is conspiring against you. Maybe it is. Life is definitely not fair and nothing is easy, but this is the best time in history to be alive. I was thinking about it yesterday. I'm 37 years old, and 30 used to be the age in which you died in Europe. And childbirth, having a kid, used to mean you likely died. And then you think about where we're at today, we've come so far. And so sometimes the world looks really hard when we're so zoomed in, but the more you zoom out, just meaning the more you look back over time, you realize how lucky you are. And if you, in your mind, can keep thinking, I'm lucky, it's an incredible time to be alive, everything is possibly within my grasp as long as I work really hard, harder than anybody else, for longer than anybody else, you'll be really hard to stop.
That's a really, really good point. Okay, how can our special secret agent trainees follow your journey moving forward? Is it Instagram, your website? Is it LinkedIn? What do you recommend?
I think Instagram's probably best for all of y'all. It's at Codie Sanchez. And I want to follow your journeys. Like, the whole reason we do this is so that other people go out there and you guys build and do the thing. It's why I don't often talk about my journey as much. I like to think about you all. Like, what would be relevant to you as opposed to talking about myself. And so what I hope is you share with us, you tag us in your videos or stories about you starting your first bookstore. Maybe don't steal from your parents. About you starting your first little mini business. About you getting your first grant, maybe to go to college or to research something or to pursue a little after school curriculum activity. That would be really cool for me if I got to see all of you winning. So I hope you tag us in it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We're going to switch to 60 seconds really quick. All right. So what was your favorite toy as a child?
Little ponies. My Little Ponies. Remember those things?
Oh, yeah. That was Hasbro. Yeah, of course. Yeah. The only company I didn't work for. Yes.
Shoot. Sorry. Yeah, that was it.
It's all good. Favorite animated series or show as a child?
Favorite animated series. Remember when I told you I had a bad memory? I don't know. I'm not even sure I watched a ton of TV, to be honest. I read a ton of books, fiction books, like Lord of the Rings, anything about dragons and wizards, etc., that I could get my hands on. I was super into all of those, and probably maybe some Disney movies that would probably be on brand. Star Wars, Disney movies, and any fantasy book I could get my hands on.
Yeah, it makes sense. That was the era. Favorite superhero?
I don't know do I have a favorite superhero? Maybe, I think my favorite superhero would be Batman, because he was a normal human who built himself into something extraordinary.
Okay.
I mean, whose favorite human is Superman? It's just like, he's perfect. We all want a little grit. We want a little darkness. So yeah, I'm going to go with Batman.
All right. That's a good one. All right. So key takeaways really quick, and let us know if we missed anything. Being successful comes with challenges, and that's okay. Have a unique drive inside of you to push you through your dreams. Put yourself in situations to grow. Go at your own pace. Grasp opportunities that are in and beyond your reach. Be persistent towards your goals. Stay eager and curious. It's okay to not know what to expect. Pinpoint your ambitions and focus on them. Build off of your hardships to become your own superhero. Learn, implement, and change.
It's great.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your journey with us, Codie. We are so thankful to you and grateful that you're here at WhizGirls Academy with us today. And our mission is complete. We'll be back tomorrow. Thank you again, Super Secret Agents, for tuning in.
Thank you all.